What's up, everybody? We're here at the Trade Talks podcast hosted on our YouTube channel, Glass Guys. And today we have a very special guest. I happen to know this person for quite some time. She is also married to one of my team members, Jared Larson, who arguably has one of the most important positions in our company. He's our CFO. He hates that I say this. I call him the bean counter. But today we're joined by Miss Liz Larson. Liz, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This has actually been a long time coming. We've kind of talked off and on over the years, but every time we talk to each other, I feel like I learn something every time I speak with you.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you.
Well, it's always good conversations.
Can we get into, tell everybody a little bit that doesn't know you, a little bit of your history. You're from Michigan, correct? Mm-hmm. So let's just talk about where you went to school and how you started in your career.
Sure. Okay. Born and raised in Michigan, Kalamazoo. I knew I wanted to go into healthcare. So out of high school, I started going to the local community college. I started working in healthcare as a rehab tech. So I've been in healthcare for 25 years. And so figured out nursing was what I wanted to do. So started going through the KVCC, the local community college, finished up with my LPN. Life happened, so I actually stopped. Started working as an LPN in 2008, and then ended up, fast forward here a little bit, Jared and I got married in 2010. We ended up moving to Colorado. I finished up with my RN there, and then so we moved from, we were living in the Detroit area, moved to Colorado. I transferred with my company, which I've worked in skilled nursing, long-term care, home health, assisted living, so a lot of different areas. And so after doing that, then did some management leadership there. Then we end up in Florida when Jared had this amazing opportunity to come work with for my shower door. Again, transferred with my company, doing some management positions, finished my bachelor's here when I went and started working at the hospital in 2016.
Which hospital?
Lee Health. So.
And how long were you there for?
So I was there since 2016 until this past January. I stepped away from bedside to for a couple of reasons, but one of them to be at home with the kids. I have some young kids. So.
And start to become an entrepreneur.
And sharing. Some things that I've learned along the way.
Well, I want to get into that. That's going to be the main focus of this podcast. However, there has been a lot of discussion, and possibly a lot of us would think a lot of changes in the last 6, 7, 8 years in healthcare.
Yes.
But for someone who's actually been in the middle of it, you're not just in an ivory tower on an armchair, you're by the beds. Mm-hmm. How have you seen healthcare change in the tenure that you were there?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's seen some changes that have not been good. And so there's been a change in the patients and how they react to things and deal with stress, if that makes sense. So it used to be in healthcare where, whether it was the patient or the family, there was this sense of gratefulness, mm-hmm. and they were appreciative of all the care provided. And unfortunately, somewhere down the road that changed. And so people have become more demanding, higher expectations, which there's nothing wrong with expectations. But there was a shift in the sense of a pill for the ill. I'm coming in now. I have these health problems. I just need you to fix them. Whereas, what we need is a collaborative effort from everyone, from the person, the individual, the patient, along with the providers, everyone from the doctor and PPA, nurse, whoever is involved, respiratory therapist, just all coming and working together. And unfortunately, that's not the case all the time. And you just would see that less and less, and taking preventative measures for help and educating on this is what you need to do, for your health.
The pill for your ill, is that what you just said?
Yeah.
That rings true to me. I can go all the way back into the late 80s. My mother always had this amazing intuition, and she would listen to it. She was never big on to just mask a problem with medication. She always wanted to know, well, what's causing this fucking problem in the first place? Like you're throwing a pill at it and that'll mask it, but what caused that?
Right.
Did people just get accustomed to the customer service aspect of, I have this problem, give me something to swallow so the problem goes away? And
Yes.
that's the culture that has been bred.
Yes.
And therefore their bedside manner or respect for the nurses and doctors in there started to change. Like, why is this taking so long? Why are you asking me these questions?
Right. And I will say, for example, me going through my schooling, right? So I go through pharmacology and I learn about all the medications, right? So the easiest one, high blood pressure, right? So you learn about different blood pressure medications, what their three main side effects are. So when a patient was diagnosed, oh, you have high blood pressure, we're gonna start you on this type of medication, a metoprolol, for example, it's a beta blocker, and these are the side effects. Well, then all of a sudden maybe they end up having some side effects. Well, then we're gonna do another medication for the side effect.
What a business.
Right? And so, and I will say, so that's how we are trained in school and sort of that thinking versus, well, what's the root cause? What have you had happen in your life? What does your diet look like? What is your lifestyle? Like, why might you be having this high blood pressure? Can we get to the root cause, alleviate the stress, make some diet changes, make some lifestyle changes, and then we can lower that blood pressure naturally.
Had you ever even attempted to have a conversation like that with a patient and then were almost vilified for doing so, either by your supervisor or the patient?
Well, yes, you're the nurse. You're just the nurse. They might ask you, and I would give my opinion, you could try a natural approach. You might talk to them about, what they were eating. But it was either one of two things. Either, well, we'll see what the doctor says. Or unfortunately, they got so used to their comfortable, even though it wasn't really that comfortable, but they didn't want to make the change.
The fear of the unknown, like, I can deal with this, as bad as it may be, I can deal with it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it's going to be like if I change. And so they're just willing to almost hold themselves hostage from getting better.
Well, and just one story comes to mind. If
Tell
you
me.
don't- okay.
Yeah.
So we had a patient, so I was in charge of the unit, and a nurse came to me. She was a newer nurse. Liz, this patient in whatever, room just ordered McDonald's delivery, and it's downstairs. And I said, remind me of who they are. Well, he just had surgery. He just had 2 of his toes amputated. He's a diabetic. And so let me go and I'll go do the best I can and try to talk to him. So I, go in, and it's sometimes hard because even in healthcare, they are the customer, right? But you're trying to educate, I understand, you just had surgery, you just had 2 toes amputated because of the diabetes. And so I think it's really important if we look at food choices. So maybe I could get you something else other than the McDonald's, but he wanted his McDonald's. So it's tough.
That's unbelievable. You're willing to cut your toe, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's not rock bottom, obviously. He hasn't hit rock bottom.
No. And that's the thing. What is
diabetes, by the way? What is diabetes?
I mean, essentially sometimes we've always looked at, there's type 1 and type 2. So
what is it? Like, if I didn't know shit about, I just know the word diabetes. What is diabetes?
So essentially your pancreas is not producing insulin. So, but now type 1, from birth, it's something that you're going to have for the rest of your life. But type 2 diabetes is something that you get, genetic, of course, it can be genetic and run in the family, but it's because of, constant spikes in sugar. And so over time, your pancreas is no longer working the way it should. So then you become dependent on, it could be a medication. Sometimes you can be put on a medication. Sometimes you have to be put on insulin if, it's insulin resistant. But that's going to look different for everyone. But unfortunately, We're seeing it in younger and younger people because of an obesity problem.
How bad is sugar for us? Like, because it's in
It's
every.
the worst thing. As a matter of fact, this is fairly new. I mean, we're talking maybe just the past year or two. Alzheimer's, they're looking at it as calling it type 3 diabetes because sugar causes inflammation. And when we look at the body and specifically the gut, when we have so much inflammation, and we can dive into this a little bit, but it causes inflammation throughout the body. It's going to impact everyone differently, but over time, it can contribute to and increase the risk of Alzheimer's, dementia.
Those are nasty, nasty diseases.
They're horrible.
But a lot of these can be avoided just strictly based on our diet.
Yes.
Most people's problem starts with the diet.
Yes. The number one, the best thing you can do, exercise is important, right? There's a lot of different things that a person can do and that are important, but what you put into your body is the most important thing.
All right, so let's transition to this. So we know you put a lot of time in as a nurse on the floor. Mm-hmm. So you're a practitioner of seeing a lot of different things and seeing the result of people's bad habits and or good habits. Mm-hmm. Now you've transitioned out there onto your next step, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
What exactly is gut health and why is it so important for your overall health?
Oh. So, well, the past 5, maybe 10 years they've really been doing a lot of research, and there's a lot more research about coming out about the gut and the microbiome. So, we're talking about the small intestines, the large intestines, so the entire colon, the whole digestive system. Now, interestingly, I will say Hippocrates, who they say is, sort of the father of medicine, said all disease begins in the gut. Now, decades ago, a lot of people would have laughed at that and said, you don't know what you're talking about, because we always focused on, the brain or the heart or the lungs. We just saw the gut as only digestion, but it impacts every system in our body, and they are intimately connected. Something called the gut-brain axis. And you could also say that, gut-brain heart, gut-brain lung, but they are all connected in many different ways. So we have our microbiome, our gut, right? It has, think of the Milky Way. I mean, more trillions of bacteria in your gut. And so depending on the type of bacteria you have, if it's too much bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria, then you're going to have a disrupted gut, something called dysbiosis. And so you're going to have a lot of inflammation, and you're not going to be producing needed hormones. And so what research is showing is that 90% of serotonin is produced in our gut, 70% of our dopamine, 50% of GABA, the majority of our melatonin, our oxytocin, our estrogen, progesterone all stem from there. I mean, all of our hormones stem from our gut. And, serotonin we think of as our happy, feel-good hormone, which it is, right? But it also impacts digestion. Serotonin converts to melatonin, so it's going to impact potentially your sleep. Your wake up and feeling energized, and then your body transitioning and getting ready for sleep, and then producing enough melatonin. Dopamine, I like to refer to it as our reward center, right?
That's true.
How many times do we get used to, we wake up and we grab our phone and look at it right away? That's a dopamine hit. And then GABA, that is our relax, that helps us, rest and digest and relax. So when you're looking at fight or flight and you have a lot of stress and you're always stressed out, then you're short on GABA. That's, you're not getting enough GABA to help you relax and calm down.
So somebody that has a lot of anxiety is more than likely one of the symptoms of that is just poor gut health.
Poor gut, absolutely. You want to target gut health. Yes.
What are some things that people can do to immediately impact in a positive manner their gut health?
The best thing you can do that I find is adding in good foods that are rich in prebiotics and probiotics. So that bacteria that I talked about, you need probiotic foods to increase the number of good beneficial bacteria. What's going on though is a lot of times people, you want to grab the salty chips or the sugar or, whatever, the bag of Doritos, just the unhealthy foods. Well, it's because of the bacteria in your gut. And because of that gut-brain axis that I mentioned, your brain sends a signal to your gut to your brain. I'm hungry. Oh, those Doritos are really good. I want those Doritos. The bacteria are dictating, what you want to go eat. But it can be challenging to be honest, it can be hard to just stop eating the bad food. But if we can add in that good food, even if it's like bananas and apples, just add in the good food. So that way you eat it, then you're full, and then, I don't need to eat that anymore. So we can start, adjusting the bacteria. It takes time.
I was going to say, is there a general timeline I know it takes 21 days to create a habit.
Yes.
I mean, how many days before, because I remember when I first stopped drinking soda, which seems like 10 years ago, if I have a sip of soda now, it almost gags me.
Yes.
Because it's so overpowering. How long does it take to make that shift? Does it depend on how bad you've been?
It's good. Yes. It's going to be different from everyone. Now, the amazing thing with the gut is you can actually sort of what I call reset the gut in just 3 days.
Oh, no shit.
Now, doing that, I am I use supplements. I believe supplements are important. It bridges the gap.
Yep.
And so, especially because it can be hard to eat clean. It's hard with the environment. We are always, we have toxins all around us, right? And that is going to impact our body. So that bridges that gap. And so, resetting the gut. Now, 90 days is what I like to say to tell people, expect that you're going to begin to see changes and start feeling better, but give yourself at least 90 days. The other thing is depending on how much stress you've had in your life, maybe different traumas that you've been through, because that affects our axis, which is our vagus nerve, which impacts our gut. It's going to take it might take you, maybe it might take a couple more months, where it might take another person a year or two, because there's other factors. For example, antibiotics. Now I'm kind of getting a little off topic here, but antibiotics wipe out the good bacteria along with the bad bacteria. So now you have this, depending on what you were eating before, it's going to be even worse. And 70% of our immune cells are produced in our gut. So you've already had a disrupted gut to begin with.
So when they say here, just take this Z-Pack.
Yes.
It's actually, it's killing everything.
Everything.
Fuck.
And so I have spoken with people there. Now I have all these digestion issues. I feel more anxious. I didn't feel this way before. Well, everything's been wiped out. We need to replenish that good bacteria. We need to repair and restore that gut to get you feeling better. Because, one could argue, right, that mental health is everything. If you're not feeling good mentally, it's gonna be hard to get through.
It's hell.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hell. And they say that your gut is your second brain.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Why is it so important? Why, when they say listen to your gut, why do they say that?
I like to, when you get the butterflies in your stomach, right? You get that butterfly and it's just a gut feeling. And how many times have you gone against that gut feeling?
A lot. That's why people say, I don't anymore.
Right.
I make it a practice to always listen to my gut now.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the term said, I should have listened to my gut.
Yes.
You never hear somebody saying, I shouldn't have listened to my gut.
Right.
Why do people not listen to their gut? Or why is it so important to listen to your gut?
Listen? Well, because of that communication going on. And usually that's our gut instinct. It's our second nature telling us, helping us, and telling us this is what you need, to do to take that next right step, that next best step.
So our unconscious mind is taking in all this data and information, and finally it connects to and sends something down to the gut to say, you should be doing this or you shouldn't be doing
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
So you're a proponent of always listen to your gut.
Absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
It's hard for some people to do that.
It really is. And sometimes it's because of things learned or seen over the years. Well, they always did it this way and that worked for them. And it may, but it might not work for you. It might not be,
Go with your gut.
Go with your gut.
Go with your gut. I love that. How does our modern lifestyle, including diet and stress, impact the gut health?
So when what happens every time we are stressed, we have a spike in cortisol. Now, stress is important. We want to, when you're driving and somebody, slams on their brakes and you slam on yours, you have this reaction, right? We need that because we want to react. But then after that, we need to level out, right? The body likes homeostasis. The body likes to be in balance. So good stress is important. When we have too much stress, that's a problem. So when we have these constant cortisol spikes, every time that happens, we have a sugar release, every single time. And so when that happens over time, it can contribute to cardiovascular problems from high blood pressure, high cholesterol, metabolic problems like kidney disease or your diabetes, and now like we talked about with the brain, cognitive problems, brain fog and memory issues, and having a difficult time just thinking clearly. So it's going to affect your body over time. Sometimes it's just in little ways. I feel tired all the time. It's hard to get through the day. I'm having a hard time, thinking clearly, that brain fog, right? So, and I think at the root of it, we all want to be the best versions of ourselves, right? And so if we can start here, then it's going to go out into the rest of the body.
I'm so anxious to learn more about gut health because I'm at that age now where, I'm almost turning 50. I had my first colonoscopy, actually. This is extremely uncomfortable to talk about, but
Yeah.
I think we owe it to people to have this conversation.
Yeah.
What's the disease that's most common? Colon cancer, let's say. Is this disease preventable?
Yes.
If it's caught ahead of time?
100%. And colon cancer right now is on the rise so quickly in young people, 20s, 30s, 40s. It may be the number one cancer risk now in that age group.
Why is that?
That's a good question. We've had a lot go on in the past couple of years and with the pandemic, and we've seen some things, and there is research coming out and showing whether it's the vaccine that's caused issues or whether it's COVID itself, spike protein that has caused issues. Unfortunately, when I see certain people talking, specialists and things, and saying, well, we're not really sure, or what can we do about it? I mean, you can take steps. You can take those simple steps like the diet that we talked about, and then exercise. And when I talk about exercise, I mean something as simple as walking and taking a walk, which has so many health benefits. But your gut, everything moves, right? The motility, everything is moving through. So we need movement. And it's actually good after you have a meal. We never want to overeat, but after I have a meal, take a nice walk. That's going to help with your digestion. So screening is important. I certainly, that's very important, especially if something like colon cancer runs in your family. That's important. And then that's where if they see polyps, remove them, because it's the polyps that can become cancerous. But those preventative steps are so important to take.
I was told that that type of cancer is very dangerous. It can move very quickly. However, it's almost always preventable if you went through the necessary steps of checking and having good gut health.
Yeah.
They said, I forget what the percentage was, but most of the people that end up dying from the colon cancer were just too proud to actually go in and get a colonoscopy. Now, I will say, because I went through this process, I can see why that's an issue. However, I've had illnesses in the past and I've kind of been desensitized to this vulnerability of,
Right.
just having to be completely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And a colonoscopy for a man is probably number one on the hit parade of like, I have too much pride for this. I'm not going
Right.
to do this. The problem with that is that the potential issues that could have been caught are so aggressive
Yes.
that if you're not willing to put your pride aside, I mean, that's not, and you don't have good gut health, that's not a good combination.
It's not a good, no. And health is wealth, right? I mean, a lot of times we take it for granted, and although it, can sort of seem embarrassing. I mean, me, from what I've seen, I always would tell my patients, like, I've seen it all. It does, you know what I mean? We're here to help you, make you better. Take those steps. Just do it, because otherwise it's a tough road.
I don't think society has normalized that type of procedure or preventative procedures for obvious reasons, because it's probably not good for business for people to not have these ailments, because then they can't medicate them and do stuff. But I think it's important to go through these screenings if you want to. I want to live and still be doing what I'm doing long into my 80s and 90s. I don't want to be hunched over and having bags coming. I don't want that. I don't want any medicine. And so I'm really paying attention to the gut health now.
Absolutely. And, you said something that made me think, we've normalized, as you get into your 50s and 60s and 70s, does the body age? Absolutely. It begins in the 30s, aging. However, what can we do to slow that down?
Yes.
It is possible. We don't have to be, going into our 70s or what have you, sort of decrepit or thinking, this is it, and now here come all the, whatever diseases, what have you, and I have to start taking these and going to the doctor all the time. It doesn't have to be that way, but I think it's kind of been normalized, right? That getting old now, and it's hard getting old.
This is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I see some people on my Instagram feed. There's some workout videos, and I saw a guy the other day who was doing these box jumps. He was 75 years old, and if they blurred out his face and you didn't see his hair and maybe how his face has aged a little bit, you would have thought this guy was in his 40s.
Yes.
And I said, that's where I want to be. That's an inspiration to me. That's how I want to. And I know diet has a lot to do with that.
Yes.
Let's talk about the mental health, because that's a big buzzword that you hear a lot of people talk about, mental health.
Yeah.
How does the gut really affect mental health?
So, I mean, I know mental health means something different for everyone. And, I think in the past couple of years, one of the things that came out of the pandemic was talking about mental health more, whether it's anxiety or depression. So that serotonin that we talked about, if we don't have enough of that serotonin, then it's likely that person's going to be struggling with depression or anxiety. So a lot of times what we've always done, or what, in the healthcare system, myself included, I have actually been on an antidepressant, SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, right? So we always thought we needed to treat here. So take this pill, and essentially what's happening is we're just stretching the little serotonin that we have, along with potential side effects from these medications. These medications come with a black box warning. I mean, to be quite frank, they can be dangerous. That's why when a person starts them, they're should be monitored closely for the first few weeks.
Is it because the body already recognized, I don't have to produce that anymore because you already have it, and now it starts like to shut off?
Well, it's because honestly, I'm not really sure. It does something in the brain that almost makes a person have worse thoughts and feel worse. Sort of before they feel better, they feel worse, and then maybe it starts stretching that serotonin. But what you end up seeing a lot, like for example, myself, having tried 2 in the past years ago, they really don't work. You end up having to increase the dose or add on another one. It's just that Band-Aid solution. We're not getting to the root cause. because what we talked about earlier, right? 90% of serotonin is produced in your gut. So if we can decrease inflammation, if we can increase that good bacteria, and also strengthen the lining of the gut, because it gets argued a lot in healthcare world as far as leaky gut. It's not a real medical term, but essentially it's an increase in intestinal permeability. So when you are eating, seed oils, fatty foods that are high in fat, your greasy foods, things like that, all that those toxins are leaking out into the rest of the body. What goes on in the gut does not stay in the gut. And so it's leaking out, wreaking havoc. And so we can if we look at that genetic factor, maybe what one person is predisposed to, like I'll say depression runs in my family. My grandmother struggled with it. So if we can just sort of tweak that genetic component, then we can help that part of it. But even that genetic part is small. We're finding in research that it's maybe, sort of 30% of what's going on versus the rest of it is the diet, the lifestyle, the environment, toxins, things like that.
I like the serotonin aspect. What are some things that we should be eating that could help? I know this is there's such a whole big holistic approach to gut health, but is there some superfoods in particular that help with the...
Yeah, so those prebiotic and probiotic rich foods like I talked about. So real quick, just to explain, the probiotic foods are so important, but the prebiotic foods feed the probiotics. Without prebiotics, then the probiotics won't thrive. So prebiotic, banana, kiwi, fruits and vegetables. I mean, prebiotic, there's so many of them. I love smoothies, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, peppers, eat the rainbow, right? So essentially all kinds of fruits and vegetables. Probiotic foods, meaning kefir, kimchi, yogurt, some sourdough breads. You just have to look at them and make sure they're true, because it actually uses lactobacillus, probiotic. And so, for example, I do a lot of smoothies because it's a great way to, being busy at home, to real quick put together some protein with some protein powder, your spinach, mixed fruits. I like blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, antioxidants. You want those polyphenols, right? Because you want to have a healthy environment within the gut. So those prebiotics and probiotics can thrive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are really, really good. And I like to keep it simple, salads, right? With some protein, with some chicken or some salmon. There's nothing wrong with, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with beef as long as it's grass-fed, it just depends on your source. That's okay. So healthy protein. A great way to eat is a probiotic food with a protein, right? So your kimchi or your kefir with your protein. And so, and then you're again increasing that good beneficial bacteria.
Is there companies out there that put probiotic concentrated into maybe a drink?
Yes.
And why would something like this be healthy? Is it more for time? Is it more for convenience?
So a couple different things now. Yeah. So this one.
Tell me about this.
Interestingly.
Can I try it?
Absolutely. Please.
There's no alcohol, right?
There's none. This is clean.
It smells good.
Yeah. 100%. There's kombucha in it. So there's probiotics in it.
Holy shit.
Natural, clean energy.
This is good for you.
This is good. Yeah.
In every sense of it.
Yes. Yes. So, being a nurse, and I used to work for a long time, night shift, right? So, which I don't recommend to anyone. It's hard on the body.
That's good.
Yeah. Right? It's so... I'd see people all the time, drinking these energy drinks, which they're so bad. I was a huge coffee drinker, and there's nothing wrong. I'm not trying to take anyone's coffee away. There's nothing wrong with some coffee, but when we start getting past, 400 milligrams of caffeine, then we're going to start raising cortisol levels, which we want to keep those down. So, I love this because it gives nice, good, clean energy, but the prebiotics and probiotics, there are specific strains that can actually target the gut to naturally increase that good beneficial bacteria. It's going to help with increasing something called butyrate. Butyrate helps strengthen the lining of the gut, which is really important so we don't have we don't have too big of a gap. So you're going to always have a gap. That's normal, and we want that and we need that so that when we eat our healthy food, right, that's going out into the rest of our body, into the bloodstream. But when it's too big, that's when those big toxins will leak out. So it's going to help with strengthening the lining of the gut, increasing the number of good beneficial bacteria, increasing the production of serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, lowering cortisol levels. So helping with stress resilience, right? So that when you know what hits the fan, that's okay. I've got this.
So people, is it fair to say then that people that have a very short temper or can't handle their emotions under stressful situation is most likely because they have poor gut health?
100%.
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
Yes.
And that ties into business, of course, and lifestyle, but in business in particular, it's so important as a service provider to be level keel, not to really get angry or triggered if somebody says something short to you, because that's not going to help move the ball forward in the situation. So you want low levels of cortisol.
Yes.
And hopefully you're giving such good customer service that you're helping raise the levels of dopamine and oxytocin.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. We see it. I think about it every time I, drive. It can be crazy driving here, right? How many times you're getting someone cuts you off, slams on their brake.
And then gives you the bird.
It gives you, like you did something wrong.
Which will trigger some people. I can actually, it's funny that you say that, because now that I've been paying more attention to my health, working out, and trying to be, I'm going to try and be a lot better with my gut health after this, but I have noticed being easier on people as far as road rage is concerned.
Yeah.
I'm not finding myself yelling at the windshield as much as I used to be.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm starting to do better with my health.
Yes, absolutely. I noticed that about myself once I started targeting gut health, and a bad morning leads to a bad day, leads to a bad night, and it gets into this bad cycle, right? So, and we're only hurting ourselves.
When you were working at Lee Health, your shift, how long was your shift?
12 hours.
You would work a 12-hour shift. You have 3 children, sometimes arguably 4 if you count Jared. Okay, so you're in a house, 4 boys.
Yeah.
And you're working 12-hour shift, and if you don't have perfect gut health, you could be borderline ready to go crazy if you didn't. Would you lose your shit often?
Yeah. I got to this point. That's what led me down this path. I got to this breaking point of...
What was the breaking point?
So...
Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So in March of 2020, we had our second son, and we all know in March of 2020, right? What happened? So I had him, and I went back to work in June of 2020, and I went back to work on a COVID unit. Pretty much almost the entire hospital was COVID. I have patients with COVID, but I went right back to working in it, and I was nervous and stressed out about it. We didn't know what we know now. Nobody knew. And so it was stressful. It was I went back and I was given one N95 and 1 gown, and that's what you had for the entire 12-hour shift. And you got all your gear on, all your PPE, and going into these rooms, they had these hoods. And something that went over the bed that they thought was going to kind of work by cleaning out the air. And the way that they worked, they had these machines behind it that were so loud. So you literally had to yell at the patient for them to hear you. Which, how many times have you had a conversation where you're yelling at someone, and how well did it go?
Well, I can tell you it's never a good conversation if somebody's yelling.
Right? So you're trying to build rapport. They're already stressed out.
It's impossible.
Yeah. And they came in, they came in hypoxic. They weren't getting enough oxygen because of how the COVID was affecting the body. And it was stressful to say the least. And so going through all that, watching people deteriorate and die, constantly wears on you. And yes, I've been working in healthcare, and some people tell you, I've heard some people say, you signed up for this, you work for this. No, I didn't actually sign up to see people just die left and right, without their families by their side, with just me, this stranger they don't even know.
Who's yelling at them because of all this nonsense.
Yeah. To take a deep breath, so we can try to get oxygen, down in their lungs. It was horrible.
Liz, I don't think most of the population actually knows, because we were all, you guys were the frontline heroes during COVID. They don't really actually know what was involved in that.
Yeah.
Right? Because just as much we were just hiding in our houses, you guys were at risk, and then after seeing some of the kind of turnover of patients where some people maybe got better and got out of there, you started to see things that were working and not working, right?
Yeah, yes.
But how was it coming down from management? Were you ever given advice that you believed in your gut, like, this isn't working?
Absolutely. There were medications that we were giving that sometimes the patient would get worse. And initially, you're thinking, well, is this just, COVID itself, the spike protein, depending on what their health was before, that if they already had, hypertension or diabetes, things like that. So if they already had inflammation going on, then it was just exacerbated, right? But you would see people who were overall healthy all of a sudden getting worse. And so you start to question things. I remember sort of an awakening moment where I heard a provider, an infectious disease doctor, right, who specializes, in the disease process, say, well, T cells don't work as T cells should with COVID. And that didn't make sense. So T cells are what creates memory. So when we're exposed to something and then exposed to it again, our body recognizes it quicker and reacts quicker, and it's more often than not is going to handle it just fine. And that didn't make sense to me. Like, why? And why all of a sudden would they not function as they should? And so I started questioning things. Well, why we're still giving this medication and it's not working? And it was hard because you're the nurse, you're giving these orders. The majority of the time I was actually in charge of the unit. So you're running around, you're working with these new nurses who they didn't go to nursing school. They went to nursing school, but not through it like I did, where you had hands-on. It was all virtual, and sim labs. And so that's a lot different.
A lot different.
Than your hands-on.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody who learns hands-on.
Yeah.
That's the type of person that I am. So now you have these new nurses. They've never seen anything like this. They're terrified. They're terrified. Because I at least have been, in my experience, have dealt with people, not doing well, dealt with, death and dying. And in my management experience, dealing with angry family members who are on the phone with you because they can't come see their family member. They're denied being able to see their family.
I feel like COVID not only put a lot of pressure on nurses, but almost turned you guys into psychologists almost at the same time, having to, hostage negotiators kind of tamper down all these other situations that are going on that were actually, looks like self-imposed.
Well, and the majority of the time, Keith, it was the nurses and the respiratory therapists who went in the room. We were the ones going in the room. Everyone was afraid. And so, we were in there and, I have plenty of tough stories, sad stories, but it changes you forever.
And so that was really the beginning of the end for you, like the stress that was caused through all that?
But you know what? It didn't, I have always been a push through, fight through, power through. I was I was raised that way. And I didn't know how much it was impacting me at the time. It was in 2022, August of 2022, we had our youngest, Ethan. And after that, about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks after, I had a breakdown. I had, I was not the person, I didn't know who I was. I was irritable. I was snapping at anything. It was hard to get out of bed. It was hard to get through the day. It was awful. I was thinking, like, is this how the rest of my life is going to be? I'm just sort of going through it like this.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. And I do a lot of reading and listening to talk radio, and I heard something about the gut and the microbiome. And so I was listening to it, and the doctor that I was listening to talked about using organic apple cider vinegar, which is great. You have to kind of be careful with it as far as like if it's something a person wants to try, like using a straw, diluting it, because it can be hard on the stomach. And so anyhow, it's supposed to help with that good bacteria. And so I tried it, and I didn't really notice much of a difference, to be honest. And I was still not feeling great, reading a little bit. So I just started to dive in more, and everything started to come together. At work, these medications aren't really working. I mean, people are getting worse. They should be getting better. And so started to do more research, and actually, coincidentally, social media came across someone who had wrote about the gut microbiome and prebiotics and probiotics. And so I started taking these specific strains of probiotics that target that serotonin, dopamine, GABA, all these things to improve, decrease inflammation. And I started to feel better. And in the first month, I just had some more energy and I felt better. And then in the second month, I started feeling more motivated. The brain fog lifted. And sometimes it's hard to explain, but in that third month, I felt almost better than my old self.
Wow.
I mean, I was on fire. And this is where I had a shift as far as I wanted to be in healthcare, but I don't want to be doing Band-Aid solutions anymore. I want to help people get to the
pill for the ill.
I don't want the pill for the ill anymore. I want to help people get to the root cause. I want them to feel their best selves. I want them to be their best selves. Everyone deserves to be this way.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's actually, that's extremely powerful. I give you a lot of respect for identifying that you weren't yourself, but then not just sacrificing, finding out another solution and actually taking action and doing something. Because a lot of people, I dealt with that with alcohol. Mm-hmm. I didn't know why I was drinking as much as I was, but I was obviously masking something, and that was leading to other problems. And I finally had to have that awakening moment where I said, I have to make a change. I know it's going to be difficult, but I have to do it. And my life changed dramatically. And I know it's going to happen again once I can really get dialed in on my gut health, because I can see why that has a massive effect on everything.
Yes.
How much does your gut health affect your immune system?
Because 70% of our immune cells are produced in our gut. So if you have that disrupted gut in dysbiosis, I mean, you're more likely to get sick more often. And that's another thing that I noticed, and that I was sick all the time, and let me just say, I've always been a big person of supporting the body with supplements, right? So I was taking them, and when COVID hit, I was really beefing up on like everything that I was taking. But looking back, I'm like, they never really helped. Why? Well, because if we have all these layers of inflammation, then we can't absorb those needed nutrients. Once I decrease the inflammation, cleaned everything up and started taking the right kind of supplements, because there's a lot of stuff out there, right? So we want, something that's high quality and really works. So once I started doing that, I mean, that's when I really noticed a difference. And I mean, like, I don't know. Honestly, I never, in the past year, I think I got sick like one time, a little under the weather, where it used to be, you get sick again, or sinus issues. I mean, histamine. I mean, another thing, if you have sinus issues, look at the gut. If you have skin issues, look at the gut. All of it. And real quick, I want to just touch on, because you shared, and I want to just share so that maybe this helps other people.
Yeah.
When I was at that breaking point and trying to push through, I had to admit that what I went through in COVID and working in it, it took its toll. Like I kept saying, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. It didn't affect me. I can handle that. But it did impact me. And
Why do you feel like you had to say, I'm fine?
I've always felt like I had to be the strong one.
Yeah.
I always had to, and even in the role of being a charge nurse, you have these nurses, I mean, who are breaking down. And I only remember two specific occasions, one specific one where I really just had to walk away, because I just broke down from something that happened, something that I saw. And I could share it if you want. Yeah. So we had a patient. It's a story about a patient. The nurse calls me and she says, Liz, I don't think this patient's doing so well. And you kind of got to know when they were starting to go downhill, no matter what you were doing. And so he had been on something called BiPAP, that essentially is helping them with their breathing. And so the nurse calls me, Liz, he's not doing so great. I said, okay, let me go see what I can do. So you get all dressed up, you go in the room, and I get him what's called a tripod position, like this certain position, and with the BiPAP machine on. And so I get his oxygen levels at about 92, 93%. And so I'm like, okay, we're doing okay. I call our CCO, critical care outreach nurse. They were someone who would help throughout the hospital when you knew you had someone going south, that if we were going to end up coding them or needing to transfer them to the ICU. And so I call him and I said, hey, I need you to come look at this patient. I'm concerned, we're going to have to be transferring to the ICU. So he comes and he's like, you fixed him. He looks great, on his pulse ox looks fine, everything. I said, yeah, I give him about 2 hours and he's going to go downhill. And within an hour, he started desatting his pulse ox, his oxygen levels started dropping. And I know I talk about it so normally, so I don't mean to be insensitive, but this is just what would happen. And so you call a code and you get the ER doc up, because you're going to have to intubate. And so, you have all these people in the room. And usually as charge, I did a certain role of just sort of running, so I could help make sure all the positions were sort of in place, right? And so we had that newer nurse training, and even a brand new nurse, which I always say, come in, you got to see what's going on so you can learn. And so we come in, and the one nurse says to me, Liz, his wife works in PACU. His wife works downstairs. And not that I don't ever give myself to every single patient, but it was like, this is one of my fellow nurses. And so the doc comes up, we get him intubated, and the doc leaves, and we have him initially, and he stops responding to the respirator. So we have to start bagging him. And the respiratory therapist had to go look for another machine, and we switch him, and he's not responding to that one. And we're bagging him again. And just the whole time I have this, brand new nurse, you can just see the fear on her face. I'm just thinking about him. He was about 56 years old, and, has a family. And so we finally get a machine that and I don't even know why what was going on, why his body, like why it wasn't working. So we finally get him on a machine, stable enough. And we are literally running out. I mean, it was like a scene from Grey's Anatomy. We're we're running down the hall and getting him into the ICU. We get into the ICU and there's nobody. I said, where the hell is everybody? Oh, they're coding somebody down the hall. And, we would work short all the time because people were sick. So we find, when a person gets intubated, they're given just enough sedatives, to just get them intubated, get them over there so that they can get on a drip. And so he's starting to come to. And so we finally get everybody in the room. My phone rings and I answer it and it's his wife. And there's something about PACU nurses, OR nurses, they're tough. They're so tough. So I just go right to the point. I said, we just had to bring your husband to the ICU. And 90 to 95% of the time the people went to the ICU did not come out of the ICU.
And she knew that.
And she knew that. And so we get him in there. I get back and I make sure everything on the unit is okay. And I got to go take a minute. I walk down the hall. I see the elevator open and out comes a nurse in green scrubs. And I just knew. I knew.
Your gut told you.
My gut told me. And she looked at me and I looked at her and she said, don't say anything. It was his wife. And I just went and I just broke down.
That was it.
That was it.
That's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. How often do you think about that still?
All the time.
That's never going to leave you.
Never.
People that have not worked in a position like you will never understand that.
Never.
And you nurses don't get paid enough, but the money actually that has nothing to do with it.
No.
But now you're able to hopefully have this mission where, and by the way, you've been putting a lot of it on social media, which I give you credit for because we talked about this a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And out of all the people I talk about social media with, there's only probably 2 or 3 that have actually taken my advice, and you're one of them. And the consistency of that has obviously grown to the point where, now we're podcasting and hopefully moving some more product.
Yeah.
Can we kind of move to a lighter side of that?
Yes, please.
How are you using social media to get your word out about gut health today?
Yeah, sharing the information, sharing my story in the sense of me personally going through that depression that, I get it. I have been there and the stress and that breaking point after having Ethan, because that's another thing. After I had my last baby, our gut gets totally disrupted during pregnancy and after. And interestingly, the microbiome begins and forms at birth when, so sort of the mom passes along. So you could say the healthier the mom, the healthier start that the baby has, right?
That just makes sense.
Yeah. Right?
100%.
So, they're immune, the immune cells, right? Circling back to immune system, it's beginning then literally at birth and helping them form, over time and how their body's going to respond to different things. So, but you see a lot in women postpartum depression, they're stressed out, they're anxious. And sure, some of it, especially for a new mom, what to expect, how to manage things, and that sort of thing. But when you're feeling so overwhelmed and so depressed, or maybe you're not even enjoying your new baby, like I was not struggled enjoying this beautiful, baby boy that we, were blessed with. And that was not normal for me. And I knew something was wrong. And so, learning about gut health and continuing to learn more and more how it impacts everything.
Our mood,
Yes.
the way we enjoy things, our immune systems, everything has to do with the gut.
Yeah.
This has really opened my eyes to that.
And I love to and that's why I share
Yeah.
on social media, because that story, and also passionate about that, getting to that root cause and helping people to become more aware, more conscientious. Maybe next time you have that meal that's not so healthy, think about how you feel afterwards. And then when you have the other meal that's sort of lighter, healthier, a salad, or salmon, let's say fish or salmon, right? How do you feel after that? Write it down. Compare the two. Which one makes you feel better? And go with that. Go with it.
When somebody eats a meal and they're just absolutely beyond stuffed when they're done, and like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
gotta go take a nap.
Yes,
That is probably because they just ate something that they shouldn't have been eating, correct?
absolutely.
They're crashing.
They're crashing. And
Yeah.
when you have those sugar spikes, like if you grab a Snickers bar or candy or something, right? You have that 30 minutes later, what happens? You're just feeling blah.
Dragging ass. Now you need another piece.
Yeah. Now you need more.
You're chasing.
Right. Yeah.
I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I should anyway. Jared Larson, your husband, in his office, he's known on that floor, on his bottom drawer and his credenza, and the center one, there is a little bag of treats in there.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to throw Jared under the bus. He might not be eating candy at home, but he's eating it at fucking work. He's going to kill me.
I've heard about the candy drawer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has dwindled down,
Yes.
I can say, over the
Yeah.
last couple of years. It's kind of even moved to like sun chips and stuff instead of the candy. But
Sun chips are horrible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
dig around. But he's not drinking any of the Red Bulls or Celsius, any of that
Yeah,
shit.
Red Bull's gone. I mean, hey, listen, we used to go to Costco and I get the big Red Bull case, the sugar-free one, thinking, oh, it's sugar-free.
It's okay
but
for
it's
me.
full of toxins. Yeah.
Where can people find this?
On my social media page, there's a link there.
Okay.
Go right there. And
What is your social media handles, by the way?
link Liz Larson 1
On all the platforms?
on
LinkedIn,
Facebook, Elizabeth Saru Larson. That's my name on Facebook.
In the show notes, we'll put down all your handles, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Not yet.
Not yet.
Is there going to be a Liz Larson podcast maybe in the future?
There could be.
You know so many people, and you're so connected to this industry. I mean, what
I do know a guy.
better medium is there
Yeah.
for you to get your word out to the masses?
Right. To reach farther.
There isn't one.
No.
And especially it's very cost effective.
Yes.
There is a learning curve.
Absolutely.
And you can go crazy. You can buy a bunch of cameras and audio, but
Yeah.
you really actually don't need that. You can just do it with a cell phone.
yes.
So I think it's important. Are we going to see more of that?
Yes.
What's one last takeaway that we can put on tape as far as gut health? Kind of a PSA. We're eliminating sugars. We're eliminating what are we placing it with so we have better gut health?
So the biggest thing that I can say is start adding in the good and then cut out the bad. I find that's easier for people to do. We are all different and have different lifestyles. So we all need to start where we are, right? So whatever your level of workout is, some people go to the gym, they're, 5 days a week, or that's what, but to someone that's not reasonable, like, walking. So keep it simple. Keep it simple. It doesn't have to be crazy.
But be consistent.
Be consistent. Once we're consistent and you're feeling better, you're going to want to, you're going to want to do it. I now, starting in January, Jared and I started doing the cold shower thing
Oh, yeah.
every day.
Changes everything, doesn't it?
And now it's just automatic. And now I want to, it feels weird to
Are you guys
not-
getting a cold plunge? Maybe.
Well, G's talking about that, but
Have you done one yet?
no.
So I'm doing the cold shower. I've been on that for almost a year.
Yeah.
What a massive difference. It's almost becomes an addiction. Like,
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
to be doing it. And I want the benefits that come from it. I have not yet moved to the cold plunge, but I want to.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
want to. And it's amazing when you I put my foot into one of them. How cold? I think it was like 50.
Yeah.
Is it because your body goes into survival mode when you go in there that it feels like your fingers and toes are what gets cold the most because
Yeah.
everything is concentrating on your
Because
organs?
it shunts. Yeah. Yeah. The blood, shunts to the organs, essentially, our body's safety mechanism.
What a machine.
Yeah. It's incredible.
So it's important that we put the right things in it.
Yes. And just take that first step, even if it's a baby step, a little step.
I appreciate you sharing your story with us. I feel like I could talk to you all day.
I know. Yeah.
But for those of you that want to see more from Liz Larson, go into the show notes. We're going to have all of her different social media handles on there. And we hope you enjoy this podcast. Liz Larson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.